Hudson County View catches up with Jake Hudnut, a candidate for Jersey City Ward E councilman, sharing his thoughts on Mayor Fulop's possible second term, responsible development, abatements, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. What was your major reason for running for Ward E councilman?
The reason I'm running for Ward E councilman is because I moved here in 2005, the day after I graduated college. And I moved here and I knew I wanted to get involved in Jersey City because I'd heard so many great things about the community and the activism here. And I did get involved. And eventually I was lucky enough to serve as a campaign manager for 2 slates for Jersey City Board of Education in 2012 and 2013. We worked alongside Mayor Fulop in both those elections. And I was very excited when Mayor Fulop, then councilman, announced that he would be running for mayor. But the unfortunate thing is that the minute Steve Fulop got into City Hall, he began running for governor. And it became apparent in some of his policies, it became apparent in his hiring, and it became apparent in his priorities. He was basically absent from Jersey City for 3 years. I looked at the folks that were hopping into the race, and nobody was saying out loud that Mayor Fulop didn't deserve a second term. Even though I knew some of them thought that, they just didn't feel brave enough to say it out loud. But I am brave enough to say it out loud. And I think whether voters support Steve Fulop or not, what they can take away from that is that what I say is what I feel, and that I'm nothing if not straightforward. And that's the kind of leader I want to be on the city council, is I want to be one that folks know where I stand at all times. My background is as a fighter, so I want to take on developers and stand for what I call responsible development. I am not anti-development, but I do think we need to have more responsible development. What I'd like to see is for us to rethink the abatement process for developers in 2 important ways that would bring us toward responsible development. That includes getting rid of the process by which tax abatements for developers take money from our public schools. The current fixes have not gone far enough and actually support the current legislation that Councilman Chris Gadsden has introduced, and I'm proud to be running alongside him on Team Matsakudis, that would put more money back in the pockets of our public schools rather than the pockets of our developers. Secondly, there's a lot that the city needs help with, whether it's green issues and sustainability or even support for local arts. And I think we can turn to the abatement process to do that, to kind of tell these developers, if you're going to build here, help us out with green issues, help us out with sustainability, and help us out with support for local arts. The reason I talk about more inclusive housing and supporting the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is because we need to make sure that downtown remains a place where folks of all sorts of income levels can live. I talk about inclusive housing because that covers several different types of things. That covers affordable housing, which I support. That covers workforce housing, which I support. And it covers artist housing, which I support. A lot of folks, when I knock on doors, are afraid of being priced out of downtown. So I want to do my part to make sure that that doesn't happen. How will I do that? Again, my background's as a fighter, so I'm not afraid to stand up to developers and say, if you want to build here, this is a requirement. And if you're not going to do this, then you don't have my vote. The reason I feel so strongly about Port Authority issues is because my first job out of college was actually working for a Port Authority commissioner. So I know the ins and outs of the Port Authority. I am not afraid to say out loud that the Port Authority is corrupt. It's a shame that Port Authority reform has stalled in Trenton. If the Port Authority was more accountable, then our service would be better. So what I would do as councilman is I would be a strong voice to our local legislators who go down to Trenton and say, look, we need to get this reform through. The last time reform went through Trenton, it was vetoed by the governor. Even if the new leadership in Trenton does veto reform, then we need to push our legislators to override that veto, because Port Authority reform is probably more important than downtown Jersey City than it is anywhere else. I'm the ideal candidate for Ward E because I'm the only one with a background as a fighter. I've been very lucky. I've been out of law school 7 years, and every day since graduating law school, I've served as either a court-appointed attorney or a public defender for the city of Jersey City. And what I do is I go into court and I stand up for folks that have their backs against the wall. And I tell their story to judges and juries. There's been plenty of instances where I've stood up against police misconduct or overzealous prosecution. So if I've been able to do that in court and deliver results for folks, then I'm able to sit on the city council and stand up for my neighbors' needs, stand up to developers, stand up to the Port Authority, stand up to fellow elected officials that I don't agree with, and get them to do what's in the best interest of my neighbors.
The municipal elections will be held on November 7th. From Jersey City, I'm Jeanette Josu, Hudson County View, the eye of the community.